today's discussion, we have Mr. Ramnath Chandrasekhar with us. Ramnath is what we call a conservation educator. He's been in this field for the last 14 years?
Yeah.
Or more? All right,
no,
okay. So for the last 14 years, okay. And he's been using films, photographs, and what we call experiential learning to nurture curiosity and empathy for the environment among children. So Ramnath, before we begin, can you explain what exactly you do? How do you nurture that sense of curiosity in children for the environment?
Thank you, Blessy. We do that with one simple term, experiences. So we create experiences among children and young people to look at nature, to explore the natural world, to explore conservation issues right from their doorstep to wherever they are. And that's how we work in the space of education. And we do that through an organization that my partner and I run. It's called UCAN, Youth Conservation Action Network. And at the moment, we run two different programs for children and youth. One of it's called the Earth Authors, where we mentor 9 to 12-year-olds to write and publish storybooks on ecology and conservation, where children participate in it for a period of 1 year, where they begin with an exploration and then there's storytelling, creative writing, art, bookmaking, and finally, whatever themes that they've written the books about, whether it is coastal ecosystems or whether it's nature in their neighborhood, they use their books to bring support for people who are working to protect and restore those ecosystems. So that's one of the programs that we run. And then the other program that we do is called the Earth Educators Fellowship, where we select young volunteers for the environment, emerging conservationists and school facilitators across India. And we invite them for a journey of 11 months where they are trained in the space of earth education and in the space of leadership and communication. And then they, implement a passion project in their locality. And that's currently being supported by the National Geographic Society from this year. And so that's what we do. And that's how we nurture empathy and participation among children and youth for our country's natural heritage.
That's very interesting. So what made you come up with this idea? Why focus on children?
I mean, children, are today's generation. I would not even say next generation. And then, they have so much curiosity and they have so much exploratory spirit. And we feel that, we need to create a space where, we are giving opportunities and a safe space for children to nurture their curiosity, nurture their imagination, nurture their interest in nature. It's already there. I have not met a single child who does not like the greenery or does not like nature or birds, butterflies. There'll be people who might be scared of snakes or frogs, but that's totally fine. And so we believe that if we bring them to a safe and a non-judgmental space when they're young and provide them with experiences over a period of time, then they become responsible citizens in the society who practice environmental stewardship, whether it is in their home or whether it is, supporting a community in their neighborhood or whether it's volunteering with an organization. And it all begins when they are young, and most of us, we do what we do because of our experiences when we are young. And that's why we start working with children and working with young adults.
I wanted to ask you, with regard to India and conservation, are there certain categories that you would say, issues that are really concerning for our country right now with regard to conservation?
Yes, there are. I mean, there are issues concerning our country right from our doorstep to the mountains and the coasts. Like you can talk about coastal erosion. About more than 40% of our beaches are being eroded, even when I'm talking to you right now. And, there's power projects and hydroelectric dams coming up all over the mountains in the Himalayas, and they're very, very fragile mountains, they're young mountains, and that's happening. And I mean, every aspect of ecosystems, right from the mountain to the coast, is an issue. And, pollution is, of course, one of the top, issues in major cities. So, which is it that, we can talk about? And every aspect is concerning. And, the more accelerated conservation issues are, the more it's going to affect people and the climate and all life forms that live in these ecosystems. So we can't really put a pinpoint on this one particular thing, and that's the particular problem.
Right.
And often whenever we talk about these issues, it affects people who are living close to where the large disasters are happening, and it also affects species in these ecosystems, like the apex predators like the tigers or the elephant migration routes. So everywhere there is one issue or the other, and so yes, everything is concerning. And
Right.
yes.
All right. There were a couple of articles I've been working on in the past, and I've noticed how a lot of these issues like pollution tend to affect uh, weaker sections of society more. Do you think that's true? Like poorer sections of society?
They get affected a lot more because they are at the face of a negative impact, and their quality of life and all of that makes these issues reach them very early, and not necessarily the other sections of the society that are in a much better socioeconomic condition. And definitely I would say that. And that is something that's very visible as you can travel to different places. Like I was shooting in Mumbai in the month of March, flamingos, and every time when I look at the ppm levels, it's all about 250. And you can really see the bigger sections. It's like nothing is happening, but actually when you actually go up close and see the people who are living close to the coast, or
Right.
people who are living in a much lower socioeconomic background, are the ones who are feeling the heat of all this. So definitely I would say yes.
Right. All right. And how do you go about your conservation curriculum? What do you, incorporate in the curriculum to ensure we do more to conserve our environment?
Sure. We, whenever we develop a conservation curriculum, we first look at what are the needs of a specific area. We have a broader framework that can be adopted to across the country, but then every locality, every region needs that framework to be conceptualized and tailored to their particular need. For example, if we are going to work with an area where there is butterflies disappearing, bees disappearing because of higher pesticides, then we'll see how such a framework can be adopted to that specific context, where education can raise awareness about what's the specific issue that's happening. Because if you look at it at large, I would say at certain sections of people, we are all aware of what's happening to the natural world. We are aware of what's happening to the environment. And broadly, we know what is it that we have to do. Sorry. So when you go to a specific area and when you see what the issues are happening, then you really feel the pinch of it. So we start by adopting a multifaceted approach that begins with listening, and then that begins with what's the need of the community, and then that begins with listening to what is it that's actually happening to the ecosystems there. For example, one of the films that we use is called India's Disappearing Beaches, which is a film that's made by Shekhar Dattatri, in which I was also working as a team. And that is very specific to to the coastal areas.
Right.
So when you look at it as, a coastal area, we'll see how, that particular film can be tailored into a conservation curriculum and can be shown to people in the fishing communities there in the language that they are familiar with, whether it's Tamil or, Hindi or Oriya. And then, then we build an experience around it. It could be a walk in their neighborhood. It could be using board games. It could be talking to people, encouraging children to talk to elders in their community to see how their ecosystems have changed over a period of time, and then giving that space of reflection and a space for action that stems from their understanding and reflection. Because the moment you explore, that's when you realize what's actually happening to the natural world. Yeah. And then you see, okay, this is what's happening, and these are some things that we can do. And we adopt an approach where we say, what is it that, children and young adults can do from their own homes, and what is it that they can do in their neighborhood, and what is it that they can do for grassroots communities and organizations who are working in the space of conservation. And that's how we approach developing our conservation education curriculum and resources, and in implementing them.
All right, great. Can you give us a few examples of how, how this curriculum has actually benefited the society or the environment, and how these children have been able to play a part in conserving the environment through your curriculum?
Definitely. I could just think of what's going to happen tomorrow. During the COVID time, we used to do a book making workshop pre-COVID for about 2 months. And during COVID time, we were trying to see how we can be of benefit to children. And so we took that workshop of 2 months of bookmaking, and we developed it into a 1-year program on, on book writing, about ecology and conservation. And children have written books about nature and the coast, coral reefs and ecosystems under the sea. And children have written books about the Ennur Creek and animals that they see in Gindi National Park. They are mostly children from Chennai. And so tomorrow they're going to launch their books. They're illustrated by them, written by them, conceptualized by them, and they're published by them. And so what they're going to do from tomorrow is they're going to identify people and grassroots organizations, groups who are working to conserve this space, and they're going to bring in support, for that, how they can support them. It could be through volunteering, it could be by raising funds for certain things that they need. So that is one aspect of it. And through our educators fellowship, we work with young people to pursue their careers in conservation. So, couple of them who have been part of that program have pursued masters in wildlife sciences, or they would have, they're working on an education program long term. So that is happening. And so that's how I would say we are making a difference. And then, we run a long-term program with our community partners in different areas in Tamil Nadu, where, using films, using activities, raising the awareness and consciousness of a particular community and seeing how they can be connected to a particular issue when the issue is happening, so in places like Rajapalayam and, those places. So that's how I would say, it's making a difference. And this year we're really excited about the fellowship that for which we are going to have the first induction workshop at the end of June, and we have 20 of them from different parts of India, right from Jammu and Kashmir to Tamil Nadu to Manipur to Delhi, and so, and most of them are pursuing their vocation in the space of conservation or education or in the space of environmentalism. So I think we'll add a lot. We are really looking forward to serving them and see how we can benefit them in serving their serving them to serve their ecosystems better. So
right. That's very inspiring. How many children have you worked with so far, or currently working with?
I've so far worked with about 50,000 of them from when I began. And at the moment, I'm working with about 14, 15 children who are writing their storybooks. They'll be beginning their civic engagement module tomorrow, and we'll be working with about 20 of our Earth educators starting from end of June. And I don't keep count on this.
Yeah.
I just,
All right.
yeah.
Okay. I'm very curious about, when you do your research in the grassroots level, were there instances where you or the children were ever surprised by certain facts about the environment or conservation? Anything that took you by surprise?
Yes, I would say at every moment when I'm traveling, I'm taken by surprise. I can only quote my most recent memories from Mumbai, where we were filming flamingos there. And, usually, flamingos were not sighted in Mumbai until 1994 or around that time. And, after that, now when you go to flamingos, you can see the sky. When you go to the Thane Creek, and when you turn towards the Mumbai city, you can see the skyline, which is all the high rises and the skyscrapers. And then you see this green stretch of mangroves that are below. And then you see this necklace of pink. There's about 4 to 5 lakh flamingos just all over. And we don't know where they are coming from and where they are going. And the Bombay Natural History Society is now doing a research on, to put a telemetry on these flamingos, to find out, to put a radio collar on this, radio transmitter on these flamingos, to find out where they are going to go. And it's fascinating, and it's surprising. I'm not surprised by it, because nature is fascinating in every moment, like, when I'm even in a city recording somewhere, when I see a shikra right in the middle of the city, I'm surprised, but I'm fascinated by it. I'm not surprised by it, because, nature is very resilient.
Right.
And so at every assignment, at every travel, such surprise really opens my eyes. And, with children, I would definitely say that that's also there, because I can quote a recent story by a boy, Ashwak, who was writing a storybook called The Flutter in the Punga. And his story is about a butterfly in Adyar Punga. It's a space, a natural restoration space in the middle of Chennai. And the story of his butterfly is how the butterfly, emerges from the caterpillar and then becomes a pupa, and then how it flies and then, feeds in the punga, which is quite a natural environment, and how the butterfly tries to come out of the punga and sees the city and the pollution there. And he compares the dichotomy between the green environment and the concrete jungle. And, and then he left the story there. And I was quite interested to know, how he would like to end that story,
Right.
And, as a facilitator, you can't really put your thoughts in the minds of children, because they have their originality and imagination, right? And so I asked Ashwak, what do you feel when you see a butterfly? And then he thought about it for a little while, and then he felt that I sensed freedom.
Okay.
And it's fascinating that he, such a profound thought is coming from a 12-year-old, and and it shows how deep, when you provide these opportunities for children to immerse themselves in nature for longer periods of time and create these spaces where they can observe the natural world and the kind of experiences that they share. And it fascinates me. And I would, and it doesn't surprise me, but I'm fascinated by every story shared by them, every moment shared by them, every experience shared by them. And every time that's the same when I watch nature also.
That's amazing. All right. Now, I know I already asked you this about the major issues that our country is facing with regard to the threat to environment. But as a citizen, as a resident of Chennai, if you would ask me what I see around me daily as threats to the environment, I would say one is the waste disposal system. Everywhere you go, you just see garbage all around. So as a conservation educator, can you name priority wise, three or four things that are imminent threats to the environment in our country?
Sure. I've moved to Kunnur in the Western Ghats, so I live in the Western Ghats. right now. And I would say the top three would be habitat destruction, and
Yes.
loss of habitats,
Right.
and that leads to a domino effect. Okay.
Right.
And the second is uh, the coastal erosion, because
Yes.
coasts are the barriers for us. And India is one of the countries that have a very long coastline of more than 7,000 kilometers.
Right.
And the amount at which the coasts are being eroded, it's just unbelievable. Okay, so that's another one. And, right in the civic sense, when you look at closer to cities, I would definitely say it's solid waste management at
Yeah.
large. And that is one. And so, yeah, these three are the ones that name as top three. And when you look at the mountains, it's definitely the rampant development,
Yeah.
and because whenever we are doing something with nature, we are intruding in the natural balance.
Right. Right.
And when you are tampering it, it is better not to tamper it. And if there is a need, then it has to be really weighed in to see how, it's not going to be destroyed forever, because it's
Right.
very hard to bring it back, So, so I would say habitat destruction, and then coastal erosion, and waste management. And those are the three.
Okay, that's very interesting because there's been a lot of protests related to development and growth. For example, the K-Rail project in Kerala.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of protests regarding that, where people are saying that it would affect, just life around that area where the rail is going to come up. And similarly in Lakshadweep,
Yeah.
where I think you're aware of that. So where do you draw the line between growth and conserving environment? Is a balance between these two even possible?
That's a very difficult question. That's a extremely important question that every one of us should reflect upon. And I think it connects with the needs of the society, and the amount at which we are consuming, and I am talking about this sitting inside a car, and but actually I would say that every aspect of development should have an angle of conservation, and
Right.
an angle of protection and restoration for the long-term development of the country. Okay.
Right.
It's like really using a credit card,
Yeah.
like, and in the end, you can keep on getting that credit. So you have this large free credit, which is nature. And,
Right.
and in the end, it's definitely going to hit something, somebody, not something, somebody. And, and so when you truly need development, okay, which is not short term, then you really need to work with nature. Okay. So that's when development and conservation will go hand in hand. And I strongly believe that ecological literacy should, be a pillar in which every organization, every society functions. Like how we talk about literacy and numeracy as the foundation in school, we got to have ecological literacy as one of the pillars, and that includes knowledge and action for the environment. So, that's where we should begin. And when we use ecological literacy, I'm sure we can achieve a balance between development and conservation for the true welfare of the society. Yeah, it's
Right.
not for the nature. Nature does not give a damn. Sorry to say that. Okay, but it's pure. It's for the people, and it's for the living beings and living organisms and life forms.
Okay, great. I'd like to end with one last question. Everybody paints quite a hopeless picture of the future when it comes to the environment. It's almost as if whatever we do is not going to help. But what do you say as a conservation educator, especially working with children? Do you think they are the hope? Are things going to change? Is there any hope for the future?
Of course, there is. Okay, because See, there is, like I said before, there is a heightened sense of responsibility. Okay. And then there's a heightened sense of consciousness. And then there's a heightened sense of stewardship in the community. Okay. And the thing is, today, you don't have to reinvent the wheel to solve a particular ecological issue. Okay. Over a period of last 20 years, and in the recent times, there's been a sea of innovation and a sea of models that have been developed. Okay. So right now we got to replicate them wherever it is needed. Okay. So that is why I feel hopeful. And, the younger generation plays a major role, especially in a country like India, because we are a young country. Okay. And, when we talk about young people and who have, who can vote, and when we talk about children who can persuade adults and who can really, become conscious citizens, there is definitely hope. But at the same time, the pace at which the destruction is happening is supremely rampant in the way we are, having these solutions. Okay. So a large change needs to come at the at the practice level in the government, because sometimes the policies are there. Okay, how do you implement them and how do you follow through with them? Okay, so I am definitely not hopeless. Okay, because if I'm not, if I feel hopeless, I would not be having this conversation. Okay, so we got to do what we have to do, and everybody should be an environmentalist, and whether you're a journalist, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a CEO of an enterprise, whether you're a fashion designer, everybody has a role to play in the environment, because it's actually the way we look at what our home is. Okay, all of us are careful of our home. Correct? We want to protect our home. The home can be our house. Home can be people around us. Home can be the community. Home can be the natural ecosystems around. So if we really look at nature as our home, if we look at earth as our home, and and all the living beings are home, then we're quite literally redefining the way we look at what home is. Okay. And I think that's where when that shift comes, I think more people will buy in, and we got to do whatever it takes for that.
Yeah. Thank you, Ramnath, for painting a picture of hope for us, and we can and do our best to preserve and conserve our environment. Thank you very much for joining us.
Most welcome, Blessy. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.